This episode is sponsored by Mudstack. Mudstack is the only asset management and collaboration platform custom built for game studios and digital artists. So level up your game art and your art game with Mudstack. Are you frustrated with convoluted folder hierarchies and naming conventions that make finding assets a pain? Do you hate using version control software that was built for software engineers instead of you, an artist? Are you also annoyed with late feedback that forces you to throw away hours and hours of work? We all been there. Finally, there's a solution built for you, the artist. Mudstack is the only digital asset management, version control, and review platform custom built for artists and game studios. Get started for free in just a few minutes at mudstack.com. That's mudstack.com. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Game Dev Unchained, the number one game development podcast about game development and the lifestyle thereof. I am your host, Brandon Pham, and with me, once a month at least, a special guest, Ray Graham. How you doing, Ray?
What's up, Brandon? It's been a while, but I'm here.
It's been a while, and the news didn't stop. But I'm glad to have you back onto the show to kind of play a little catch up for those eager listeners out there who are lost in the world of game development and need our voices and opinions. So if you guys haven't read the title just yet, this is the Roundtable News episode where game developers, such as ourselves, share our own individual opinions about the latest and greatest topic that concerns you guys, game developers. So let's go ahead and switch gears and go over there and check it out. So very quickly, Activision Blizzard has been, well, more Blizzard than Activision, have been kind of in hot waters lately, following their footsteps of fellow competitor Riot Games. I guess about a year after, there was a lot of harassment claims made and really high departures in the last couple months. Diablo directors, Overwatch. I don't think Overwatch, but like long-standing co-founders even have been kind of pushed out in the midst of this rioting. Harassment, right? There were stories of walkouts, one-day protest. Yeah, it's actually very similar to riot. You know, in the same footsteps, where a lot of employees kind of did a walkout and had their say and kind of pushed management to have some kind of responsibility over these claims. And Activision well, in particular, management, board of directors were kind of suing them, as well as California suing them over these widespread harassment because board of directors were led to believe that this wouldn't have an effect on the finances of the company. But because of the harassment, there was a huge dip in the stock market for Activision, as it seems to be.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought it was the California sued,
yes,
which then impacted everything, like financially, right?
Yeah. You're right.
And then the shareholders were like, "What's going on, guys?"
Right. So yeah, months before all this broke out, this was internally reviewed, and management at Activision kind of gave confidence, saying that nothing is going to affect us. We're handling this. This is under control, right? So obviously not under control. California, the state of California, are coming at them, and like within that, there was some kind of bad press with how there were information withheld, I believe, too, during the investigation. where some of the news was suppressed by Activision on purpose. So this kind of was one of those with it's an offense, obviously, that again broke out and made things even worse. This have transpired in the last 2 months, so we're coming at this a little late to the party, but kind of seeing it all kind of unravel, right? And I guess that's a lot of news. I kind of want your initial impression of this. I mean, we're kind of closely tied to the industry.
Yeah,
I've heard these type of things a little bit. And just to kind of leave it off before I hand the mic over to you, the Cosby Suite was kind of like one of the meme that came out of all this that kind of made it easily spread to the public about how they had like this this office at Blizzard where a lot of underlings kind of referred as the Cosby Suite because that's where a lot of this was happening, I guess, at a management office. So go ahead, take on what your thoughts are. Like, were you surprised by all this? I wasn't really, but like,
okay, no, but yeah, we definitely wasn't surprised. I think some people were acting surprised and they were like, "It to Blizzard, Activision Blizzard," and it's like, no, man, like this is
very normal.
Activision Blizzard is just the one today, and it's the one, and it's also the one actually getting sued by the California.
That's a big one, yeah. Right, didn't even get sued, right?
The Department of Fair Employment, right?
Yeah.
So the California Department of Fair Employment is like suing them because they didn't want to cooperate with what they were asking them to do, right? So now they just straight up said, okay,
well, actually, let me fact check that real quick. Like, so you're actually rejogging my memory on this. So I got my company mix. So Riot came back from the dead because after the Blizzard thing, because
what? What are we talking about? Riot? What?
No, we're talking about Blizzard, but they were kind of tied together because Riot had some news of its own case.
Well, that was a while ago, right? And that thing blew up and was a big thing, right?
Right.
Like that was at least how long ago was that? 3 years ago, and
right. But it came back because when this Blizzard thing blew up, the state of California sued Riot as well because Riot were not letting their employees know that they are free to share information without any jeopardizing their job, right? And Riot led them to believe that was not the case. So they withheld information from their own employees from reporting about harassment within the workforce to the state of California. So this was happening right when Blizzard kind of blew up and Riot got back into the news feed again. It's so crazy, man.
But also like Riot doesn't have to let them know that because that's literally the law, right? Like you can't, like you could go and make a claim and
right, but I think they led them to believe
get fired for that,
right? But they led them to believe. Well, I think they were supposed to send up a memo to let their employees know that this is, public information, that it won't be used against them, to kind of give that extra. I think they were instructed to do that and they chose not to, and they kind of delayed that process even longer because there's this small window where that sharing to the state of California was important and they just weren't around to do that.
I mean, all this stuff is like, it's not surprising, right? Because it's like, there's Riot, Riot had its thing. There's Ubisoft, the Ubisoft stuff that blew up. There's
everyone at this point.
There's a lot of companies where this is going on under the covers, and there's whisper networks of people sharing information, but it doesn't really hit the media. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
this is just an example of like it took a literal court document for it to be brought to the light. You know what I mean? And then when you start digging deeper, all of a sudden the Cosby Suite and all this other kind of nonsense came out of that. So like it's definitely not surprising, and it's just sad that it's still yet another example
Yeah,
how
well, I mean,
treating people.
our industry kind of leads to this frat boy behavior. Here's some examples. This is shared from the Kotaku article. And this quote: "In the office, women were subjected to cube crawls, in which male employees drink copious amounts of alcohols that crawl through their way through various cubicles in the office, and often engage in inappropriate behavior toward female employees. Male employees proudly come to work hungover, play video games for long periods. I mean, don't we always play games during work while delegating the responsibilities to female employees? Engage in banter about their sexual encounters, talk openly about female bodies, and joke about rape." Yeah.
No, sounds like typical immature.
It's actually, yeah. I mean, it sounds like, yeah. I mean, that's the problem. That's the problem with the workplace not being
professional environment.
Yeah. I'm not saying that an office full of guys cannot be professional, right, and mindful. But as these offices get more and more mixed, right, that behavior doesn't get checked on a regular basis, and you kind of let loose. I haven't made these type of harassment claims and made this stuff kind of uncomfortable, but we all make jokes in the office, right? I'm not defending this at all, but unless you kind of pay attention to what's around, right? You often kind of let loose tongue kind of sing through the hallways, right?
It kind of sounds like you're defending this, but
I'm not defending this. I'm just saying that we're so used to the male to female ratio in the office. That's what happens.
Well, that's the problem, right? Yeah. Right, and then it's because of how the industry started. People get used to something that's just acceptable behavior in a professional environment, and then now we're talking about companies that are publicly traded and worth billions of dollars, right? So there has to be some sort of maturity that you have to.
Yeah, it needs some maturity.
Executing when you're in a professional environment, and like in California, especially, you're required to watch those boring videos about this kind of behavior and how you should not be doing it at the office, right?
Yeah.
So like you just have to know that you can't do this stuff, right?
I think there's enough of these stories to be like, you've been warned.
You should get back to doing that UV layout and stop cracking those jokes. You know,
I crack jokes because I'm doing UV layouts.
Get back to work.
I hate to say this, Gainer, you kind of heard that story, right?
Yeah.
That kind of broke out around the same time. And that's on a smaller scale. They're an indie studio. Mm-hmm. And it is a studio that employs a lot of women. I think like more than half, from what I've read. And it wasn't harassment in terms of sexual harassment, but it was more like undermining experience.
Like,
it seems.
I think in that example is just more. It's more of just being
ego,
a tyrant and ego, and then that take control of how you communicate to people on your team.
Yeah, right? That's a tough one. Unless we can see and examine that specific example. I feel like it's very tough to kind of look at these reported articles and anonymous without knowing like, all right, what do you mean, right? Because I am a lead.
I'll say this, right? Like,
all right.
It is definitely, from all the information that's out there, it's a definitely different situation than Activision Blizzard, right? But it's still a situation of where people, when you get up in the morning and you want to go to work, you're like, God damn it, I don't want to have to deal with this dude. You know what I mean? It's still that kind of situation. It's the term's kind of a bit overused a lot and people mock it, but it's a toxic work environment. It's a work environment that you're not comfortable in, right? Yeah. And that it's different from straight up sexual harassment, retaliation, and straight up sexual abuse, right? Like it's different than that, but it's still a situation where you're putting people in an uncomfortable situation.
Here's another example shared on the site about how the women of color were particularly vulnerable targets of discriminatory practices. An African American employee noted that it took her 2 years to be made into a permanent employee. Well, okay.
Yeah.
While men hired after her were made permanent employees. All right, that's shaky ground. She also was micromanaged such that her male coworkers were known to be playing video games without any intervention. Here's the problem when it's like this huge thing that's going on, right? All these little stories kind of get thrown into it, right? And you don't know what's true and what's not and what is it, because there's a lot of experience thrown into it, as well as like specific examples about that person.
Yeah, I mean, like it's their experience and how they perceived it, right? Okay. And then when you gather all the information, you're just going to put it all out there and be like, here's how this person perceived all these things.
Right.
Definitely contractors and wanting to get your role upgraded to full-time. It's a problem. It's a problem in general. And it's definitely a problem for people that don't fit in.
Yeah. I will say this, out of all this
don't match the well, they're just not a fit for our work culture or some foolishness like that. You don't want to do this pub crawl where we crawl around the office and drink. Like, why should I make you a full time?
If you're on all fours in the office, and people are cheering you on, something's going on. Yeah, something's wrong. You got to make like an adult decision at that point and stand up and like, no, I'm not doing that. I got bad knees. Well, continuing off that example I read, this is the part where, all right, something's up. Another African-American employee who worked in information technology was similarly micromanaged by her manager. Unlike the men on her team, when she requested time off of work, her manager made her write a one-page summary of how she would spend that time off when no one else had to do any write-up. All right. That is a red flag. If you have to write a note, like you're in fifth grade, of how you would spend that time.
Time off? That's crazy. Yo.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy. Yeah, that is not normal.
Yeah.
But I mean, the main issue is with the bigger company like Activision Blizzard, they often try to push this under the rug as quickly as possible before it snowballs into what it is now, a big problem. And it's unfortunate, but it is kind of like the norm for these companies to act and react that way. And I'm kind of curious to see, especially with Blizzard, right? What I'm seeing with Blizzard, because Blizzard has kind of been on like a downfall-ish as of late in terms of monthly subscriptions to all their franchises, right? Combined, it's been kind of dropping. I think the last graph I saw was 50% over like 3-5 years or something, which is a lot. Not just WoW, Overwatch, everything. And so it's part of the onslaught of what we've been seeing, where Activision Blizzard is becoming more and more Activision controlled, right? There was a couple years ago where Activision's management kind of went in, and Blizzard doesn't manage really their own team anymore. They're starting to use the publishers team to kind of market their game and at least manage that part of it. So we saw like the external development or external management from Activision starting to move in and take more control of Blizzard a few years ago because of the slow downfall that we're seeing now with a lot of their thing, right? And now with Blizzard OGs kind of being pushed out, how much of Blizzard is left is what I'm asking.
Well, Blizzard has been bleeding its OG talent for a while, but that might be a good thing.
Yeah,
right. That might be change and bring in fresh ideas and fresh things, and the next thing they do might be another huge success, right? Like it's hard to say if it's like these special snowflakes were the ones that made these great games, or maybe they're the ones that made those great games at the time. And that idea was hot at the time. And in the year 2021, that idea is no longer hot, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. And then now you need the fresh new blood that's thinking differently about what the next big thing is going to be, or the next experience is going to be.
Yeah,
it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But this decline of Blizzard has been going on for a while. Meanwhile, Activision stock is doing best it's ever been doing. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much of that's really been hurting their bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, if in the end they're just worried about their stocks going up or down, then a Blizzard blip won't hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, man. I feel a lot of what the stock's been going through is kind of remnants of old success of the Blizzard flame, right?
Well, the other part of Activision's been going very well, right? Call of Duty,
Candy Crush
are killing it, right? Yeah. King and.
Well, here's the dangerous part, right? Here's something I did read. With Blizzard kind of slowly flaming out, Activision, the other half, quote unquote, are going harder and harder with the just Call of Duty, right? A lot of the other franchises besides COD are kind of being roped into the COD development family, and they're really putting all their eggs in one basket. So there's like a lot of articles that I'm reading.
What are the Warzone numbers?
Yeah, it's doing well.
No, it's not doing well. I think that's an understatement, right? Warzone's doing incredible. Yes. Right. And so, yeah, that's what they're going to do, right? I would love to know what Warzone's.
Yeah, I'll look it up right now. I mean, the pandemic did it wonders, I think. I think in terms of growth, during the pandemic, it did its best.
Activision Blizzard's Call of Duty drives 27% of the Q1 revenue in 2020. That's in 2020.
Yeah.
Revenue's growing. Yeah, revenue grows 21% and driven by Black Ops, Call of Duty is the moneymaker, you know what I mean? And you can't really be mad at that. Yeah,
and its mobile is actually doing really well too.
Yeah.
COD Mobile. Yeah, I mean, my concern is that
maybe there's too much focus and there's not new IP and stuff, but this is something that we've seen in the industry forever. Like when GTA was the hot thing, everybody was making GTA clones and pouring a lot of money into the next open world thing. That's calmed down quite a bit, and now the next wave of investment from other companies seems to be like, I need some sort of games as a service shooter that people will play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, on behalf of the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, it seems like men were being groped as well.
Yeah,
oh my God. Yeah. It's not a safe place to be anywhere, man. Can't be this good looking. It's jail rules.
It's a good thing you don't have to worry about
it. You'd be surprised, man. I am a type for some people.
Stop it. Anyway.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I mean, I know some friends that actually left right before this all blew out, knowing that it would become a problem. But they did say that they witnessed some of this, but at the same time, they feel like a lot of these claims are kind of leftovers from the old crew. Like a lot of the big stories are kind of from.
Well, they're from a while. They're from some time ago. But also, like in that story that we're not really focusing on, there's also like talks of pay.
Yeah.
Inequities, right? And that's something that's they found to still be ongoing, right? So like it's not necessarily just like, oh yeah, that's not a problem anymore. It's always something that you have to be always mindful of and have policies and things in place that won't let it just breed and fester. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to ask you about that, right? With this kind of hybrid approach, a lot of companies still figuring out exactly how many people they want back in the office, how many they don't. we're seeing the tech companies around the Bay Area kind of focused on kind of reducing pay if you're not in the area, right? If you're in another state.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How do you see that factoring in with all this unequal payment and all that stuff? Like, is it going to get lost? All this kind of progress we're making on this side, like that's going to mess things up a bit.
Well, yeah, that was actually that's been a hot topic, because there's like a camp of people that are like, if I'm going to do the same job as somebody else, it doesn't matter where I live, just pay me the same money for the same work.
Sounds like employee. Yep. Yeah. Period.
Right. At the same time, I'm living in
cheap
Idaho, and I could buy a mansion for $2, and I'm walking around town wearing a gold crown every day.
Yeah.
What am I doing to that local community? Because some company in California has enough money just to pay me crazy amount of money, right? Some people would say that community in Idaho everybody needs to get paid, but that could have a really crazy impact on the economy of that place, right? So there's the other camp that argues that you have to get paid the local market rate for that type of job in where you live. Right.
That's an interesting.
I don't know, like how that place is pay equity in a way, right? Because like when it comes to gender, male, female, no gender, whatever.
Yeah.
The person, if two of the same people are in like Idaho, then the pay should be the same, right?
Yeah.
But if they're in San Francisco, the pay should be the same, but it should be this San Francisco rate. And like, you know, the HR and the comp team will argue why this is important all day long, right? But none of that will still convince people that, you know, same work, you should get the same pay, no matter where you
are. I mean, it might be easier.
Because you're bringing the same value, the same value to the company.
Right. I think it's easier for people that is just starting to get onboarded, and then you can make that argument and it's like whatever. But what we're seeing is a lot of people who are used to a salary are getting reduced salary because of this.
Yes. But I mean, that's just like, you know, you've interviewed for jobs in different places to relocate and stuff, right? And immediately they tell you, well, you know, our cost of living is way less than San Francisco, right? Yeah. That's the first thing they want to tell you, because they're about to tell you that they're not going to pay you as much, right?
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at it on paper, you move to that place, you're getting paid less. Sometimes you end up living even better because it's like it's way cheaper, right? And the pay cut is still not. The pay cut is less than the change in cost of living. You know what I mean? So like sometimes you still come out ahead, but like that's been a thing. That's been a thing ever since I've been in the industry. Right?
But is it really a thing that somehow you getting paid more in a community that's used to a certain lower salary? Is it that big an effect? I mean, what is the? Let's explore that a bit more, because I that's the first time I really thought of that. Like, what are the dangers of someone rich in your neighborhood? Like, is he buying up more land? What's the fear here? Buying more, look
what's happening. Like the whole term gentrification, right?
Yeah,
is rich people going to
just pushing others out.
And you just push others out because now you can afford to buy whatever, right? And so then you buy whatever, drive up the housing costs because you can't afford it, and it pushes lower income folks out, right? That's
like Texas right now.
San Francisco, Oakland, right? Like New York.
Well,
right?
Texas is a hot spot right now. A lot of our friends, a lot of people we know are kind of moving to that new Tex hub space, right?
Yeah. And you know what? They're moving there because they're like, oh, Texas is cheaper. But then they're all bringing California jobs and a bunch of money.
And it's all rising up now. And the locals are complaining about it.
Yeah.
All right.
And same thing in Seattle. Right? So that's like
it's a problem.
That's something that you have to be mindful of, right? Like how will that actually impact a community?
So that is a legitimate argument. It's not just an employer being.
I mean, like it is, but the person getting the pay cut doesn't care regardless, right? Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? So.
Did you know the top 10 mobile games in the US grossed more than $340 million in June? Do you want your game to earn more? AppFigures is all about giving game makers the tools they need to get more downloads and revenue. You may already know them for analytics and app store optimization. Now, AppFigures can help you keep track of competitors and the game market, from how many downloads they're getting and how much money they're making, to their audience demographics and even which tools they use to power their games. Their competitor intelligence gives you great context. Got a great idea for an app or a game? With AppFigures, you can figure out how big the market is and how much money you could be making with it. Say a competitor adds a new feature or was mentioned in the news. With AppFigures, you can see if that brought in more downloads, and that's just scratching the surface. Whether you're growing your game or building a new one, AppFigures has what you need to reduce risk and get more downloads. Best of all, you don't need a large budget or data science degree to do this kind of thing anymore. AppFigures has made it affordable and simple. On top of tools, AppFigures also provides a lot of guides and tutorials to take you step by step through gaining more visibility with ASO and increasing your revenue by learning from your competitors. They just released a free guide on that, actually. Head to appfigures.com/on/GameDevUnchained to try AppFigures for free. Again, that's AppFigures, appfigures.com/on/GameDevUnchained to try it for free. If you like it, use our special code GDU3030 to get 30% off for the next 3 months. This episode is sponsored by Mudstack. For all the artists out there that are working within a game studio, big or small, you're going to need a great collaboration platform custom built for the digital artist. That's where Mudstack comes into play. It's a special version control review platform custom built for individual artists, whereas other source control feels like it's being built for software engineers. Mudstack is geared towards artists so that collaboration gets even easier, and the only thing you need to concentrate is on your game itself and not the software. So do yourself a favor, go to the solution built just for you, the artist, and get started for free in just a few minutes at mudstack.com. That's mudstack.com. That's a tough one, man. That is a tough one. I didn't think of it like that, but what you said totally makes sense. We're seeing it in Texas, like a lot of locals over there. I have friends over there that are complaining about how housing prices are being raised up, and they hate.
Yeah, even things like
coming in.
People are like, "Oh, I'm going to move to Mexico and be a digital nomad and do some job that pays like an American salary, and I'm going to live in Mexico, right?" And then there's this rich expat in this place that has a much lower cost of living, living like a king, right, and not really feeding the local economy in that way. You know what I mean? It offsets the balance, right? Especially if you get a large concentration of people in one place.
That is a bigger piece of that puzzle that not a lot of employees consider. I think a lot of it just has to do with education, man. Like, can you explain to me, not on an individual basis, kind of more like in a group, so that you feel like everyone's getting the same information, because that's the fear, right? As a person that's negotiating at the table, is like, are you just screwing with me? And
here's the thing too. All of that information about what you should get paid and market rate and how the company decides that is completely opaque to the employee.
Right.
And so then it could totally feel like the HR is like just trying to get over.
Yes, exactly. That's the first sense, right? When you arrive to the negotiation table, you're immediately assuming that you're going to get screwed. But yeah, that's something about the game industry that I feel needs to change. Like, not just about salary transparency, but about, just game sales. We've been saying this for a long time. I have no idea. There's no place. And you see in the theaters and movies how helpful that is. Even now, especially now during the pandemic, it's changing the business by just how much we know a movie is doing in theaters, right? Like this last weekend, Shang-Chi was a measure for Marvel, for the theater chains, about what the future of their business looks like, and that info was right on cue, to the minute, to the hour. What's the latest? And that type of transparency helps both industries kind of move forward. But like now we have so many different publishers, so many inequity of pay that's behind secrecy, right? It I think creates a lot more confusion and arguments between people than necessary, and everybody just assumes that they're getting screwed, and which doesn't help. Yeah.
Yep.
I agree. Like if you're a director, if there is some kind of clear equation that factors in experience, right, along with that, you should be paid the same, right? If your experience is the same and it's the same title, you should be paid the same.
Yeah.
But without knowing that,
or at least paid in the same
range,
pay band or range or whatever. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it's human nature to find some issues with that. It's like that guy is like some personality disorder. Like you got to factor in personality along with experience. I'm way better than that, dude. I'm way more enjoyable than that, dude.
I think that's what companies are afraid of, dude. Like when it comes to pay agents, they don't want people saying this kind of stuff. And
yeah, dude. What's the first thing, right? When you hang out with a bunch of friends, you've been in the situation, and somehow it gets to salary, and you're like, all right, I don't want to say it, or I'll say it, and you say it, and then your friend's face just turned blue. You know what I mean? And then you feel awful. It's like, how much? I've been here for 10 plus years. I've had weird, awkward moments like that. Yeah, you're the guy turning faces blue, right?
I say I don't have the experience, so I do not discuss these things. But
it pops up once in a while. You'd be surprised. Yeah. And it's always awkward, and somehow the immediate attitude when you hear something like that, and you're in the chair of like unequal pay. It's like, fuck that place. Immediate resort to quitting. It's like, they don't appreciate me. They don't know what I do. I can't believe that intern's getting paid more than me. It's very human nature, because your salary, unfortunately, a lot of people equate it to self-worth, which is, I think, a very beginner way of thinking of it, right? I think as we mature more in the industry, it's like, it's hard not to separate it. It's like somehow your salary is what you're worth, right? But it's like, nah, man, it's like you're more than that, I mean,
it's hard to say it like that, honestly, because your self-worth
is how much you make.
That's pretty bad. If that's how you like. I think it's more you equate it to how much your company respects you or values you more so than your own self-worth, right? Because like your own self-worth should be like, I should be getting paid $1 billion up in this piece. That's how dope I am, right? But of course, you're not going to get paid that, right? But it's really, how the company views you is probably what you really should care about.
Yeah, I think the company perspective of all this is difficult. In employee perspective, a lot of it, I think, is just clouded in mystery of not knowing what it's like to be in each other's shoes. If I'm your boss and you're my employee, there are a lot of difficulties being, the studio head and trying to be fair. But unless everything is out in the open, it's almost impossible to be fair or not.
Or just have policies, man. Just have policies in place, and like for this job at this level, that's how much you get paid.
Right.
And then two people come in for the same level, same job. That's how much you get paid. And
there's the thing.
Have clear lists of responsibilities and outcomes for the level.
Well, this is my question to you. This is playing. This is kind of playing the devil's advocate on this one. Uh, how much does it? How much is it an employee's responsibility and then stops to be an employer's responsibility, right? Because if you're coming for a job and I give you just a range, a number, right? And the first guy immediately agrees, where the second guy actually comes back and negotiate, whose fault is that? Right. And and that happens a lot, right? And between female and male and or male and male, different people have different acceptance in terms of the first offer or second offer.
Well, that's why you need to have the policies and the ranges, and you go, look, this is what this is what we're giving you, right? Or let them say the number first. You're like, well, that's outside of our range. Our range is this. This is what we got to do, right? And then do some inventive things. Oh, we'll give you a little more signing bonus or whatever to try to make up for it. Or here's some more stock to make up for, this negotiation, right? But when it comes to the base, just always be like, this is the range. That's it. There are some companies that are like that, where it's like there is no negotiating, the base. But you just have to you have to have the policies in place, right? And that gets around, when you have the policies in place, that gets around the whole notion of somebody could come in and say, I'm worth 300,000, and somebody else goes, and then somebody else doing the same job's getting paid 100,000.
So you're saying that the policy dictating a range, but within the range, it still can be a problem.
Yeah, but the ranges are not like that crazy different, right?
Yeah.
It's not like the example I gave, like 300,000 to 100,000, right?
Yeah. So some kind of at least education from the employer's part, saying like, hey, for this position, usually at base level, this is what we pay.
Like, you got to remove, like they say, you got to remove that wild card component of being able to
whatever
and the whole game that companies play. They come in like, oh, okay, here's the lowest that we're possibly ever want to give you, and then you have to buck and say, nah, I don't want that.
Yeah. The game sucks. Yeah, most people fail at that game. Well, that's the thing. Like I feel like when an argument is made about how women and male, there's a big difference, right? That part, it's hard to kind of say it's all employers' fault, or even male versus male.
Well, you got to remove the part that it puts onus on the employee. It has to be on the employer, right? And then there's no room for it.
Does anyone do that? What game company does that? Nobody, right? I never came to a table and they're like, hey, this is what we pay usually for all positions. It's like, for real? Yeah, this is for real. I was like, all right, let's start there.
I'm not saying that all companies do this or whatever, right? But what I'm saying is, like, that would be a way of to help getting around these issues. You know what I mean? So
this is a very idealist,
because like,
way of doing it.
Other companies do this, like they, when it comes around to raise time, they look at people's salaries and they're like, oh wait, this person for the last year has been getting paid way less than this other person. We need to renormalize, and then that person gets a bump. But then they're like, oh wait, we can't bump that person all the way up, because then they'll be like, why the hell did I just get a 50K raise, right? Like, this seems kind of crazy, right? And then they'll start asking questions. I wasn't getting paid what I should get paid this whole time? And so they do smaller increments and try to catch them up. And it's just like, what are we doing? Right?
Oh my God, it's so tough. It's so difficult, man. It's so difficult on both sides. Like, I think people fail to realize how difficult it is to be an employer, and all these rules, unwritten rules, are being written every day.
That's where you hire HR people, right? Like, that's their jobs.
It's human relation people. Do they go to school? Like, where do they learn all this stuff? Hey, dude, I look at tracks for game development. I don't know where the HR people come from. Where do they come from?
Wrong with this guy?
I'm just asking on behalf of the audience. Where do human relation people usually come from? Out of school?
They do go to school for that. There is degrees even for that. Yes.
About company policies and all that shit.
Well, about human resources in general, and there's subsections, right? There's like recruiters. Sometimes recruiters don't I don't know how recruiters get into the mix, but there's other functions of HR, like HR operations and comp and those things. Those people at school, man.
Yeah, but I've seen HR people at work, right? And they're like under the thumb of studio head. And it's not like I see them going to college courses every month or two to catch up with the latest social norms, right?
Dude,
it's like how they get caught up.
There's human relation programs at universities, bro. Bachelor of Arts in Human Relations. Like, come on, man.
All right, but these rules are new, man. This is my impression of HR, right? They're there in place as a puppet. Right? They just forward along the policies of the studio head set in stone at the founding of the studio. And I don't see that ever really stemming from the HR department. It's not HR department informing studio head of these are policies that we need to change to be up to date. These can be problems, right? Like, I don't see that happening. You know what I mean? All these ideas that you're saying is like, no way an HR person is ever going to come up with this and actually have the influence to make the change.
No,
it's always been reactionary.
No, as companies grow and get bigger, human resources policies got to change with the company, right?
Sure.
And and for a small company, it's probably one person who's like doing multiple jobs and they do that thing too, right? Yeah. But then as the company grows, then you need to actually have dedicated people for that.
Right.
The other part of human relations job is, like you said, puppet. I think that's a very strong word, but I'd say like the human relations department is also there as a way to also protect the company. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, I mean, I always assume they're there to protect the company, not the people that works for the company,
and be there as to get the complaints and investigate the complaints so that the company does not get sued. Right.
I mean, let's just assume that that's how things operate. But I'm just saying,
that's how it's supposed to operate. But of course, in certain cases,
HR to me have always been reactionary. Like, oh shit, we're in the news. Here's some stuff, you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, what's the second thing that we always hear? It's like PR. Blizzard, oh shit. All right, well, these are the policies that we are rolling out. This is what we're doing right now. We're combing through all the departments for all the harassers and gropers, right? This is what we're doing. It's like, and what do we hear all this time? It's like, oh yeah, this was actually reported and were known 2 years ago, but we just never really surfaced any of this detail because it would have hurt our stock. That's to me what HR is and always have been. Like, I never seen this kind of initiation from HR. You know what's hot right now, studio head? Not groping people. This is what we should do, and be able to be able to nail that down and have an outline, and then be able to be like, hey, 1, 2, 3s, let's kill it right here and now.
That's literally diversity and inclusion. Employee relations, which is
reactionary,
it's
always been reactionary,
which is the part of dealing with employee complaints and things like that, business operations, policies, benefits, right? All that stuff.
HR to me would work better if the director of HR has as much power as a studio head. The fact that director of HR is under the studio head creates this problem that we're always having. It's like, how can you make policies, for the guy that's breaking all of them? You know what I mean? That's the usual case. It's like,
why are you picking on the poor? There's some studio heads right now going.
The studio heads are the one that's kind of pushing back on these claims, right? Harassment claims. They're the one making the decisions. Usually saying like, hey. This is bad PR.
No, a lot of times what it is, it's like a claim gets made. HR is like, we'll investigate. They go and they start investigating, and then they're like, well, that guy's a really high performer. It would be devastating to lose them.
Yeah.
This sounds like a minor thing. and then it kind of gets like swept up under the rug. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Every
It's
industry.
it's not straight up some clear cut thing, and then they just do that a lot, and then next thing you know,
until the wall breaks,
California is knocking on the door, like suing, right? Like, because you're not listening to the people that are your employees because you're more concerned about the bottom line or the success of the project or whatever.
Repeated aggressors. I mean, that's what happened to John Lasseter. I mean, he's making 3D movies somewhere else, but for a long time in Pixar, he's kind of well known as kind of like, kind of handsy, right, at parties. And they warned him many times. I've even read stories where they had a dedicated anti-groper, that assistant kind of following him around to kind of like watch his behavior, but for a lot of years, he was an issue until it was basically this whole social justice stuff really got hot, and it was just a ticking bomb, and they got rid of it basically. But that's pretty much every industry, everything. That's, to me, that's what HR is. It's always been reactionary, and it's always been, how silent and how long can we keep this at until we have to face the music, right, and do something about it. I wish HR was a little bit more what they're supposed to do, but I think because of the company structure, they just are powerless until they get the green light to do something.
I think it just depends, right? And it goes from company to company, and it just depends. But
yeah. I guess guys are just terrible, man. Why is it so hard to not grope people? Like, why is it such a problem, dude? I don't understand. Is it just because we grew up as nerds and they're just around people and just don't know how to handle it?
It's also society, and you get away with it, and then it gets rewarded, and then you just don't know how to act. That's really what it is.
I just don't. I just assume that don't do things that people don't want you to do. I don't know. It's just a different thing.
I just work here, man.
That's what I'm saying, man. I just work here. I go home. I'm married, dude. I don't want any of this mess. God. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this issue will ever get better, to be honest. Not until the ratio from men to women are more halved, right? I think when you are in any situation where one outnumbers the other, the majority behavior will continue to repeat itself.
Well, but that's why you have diversity inclusion. That's why you have trainings. That's why you do these things, right?
Yeah.
Is like we want to get the numbers up, and we want to get it to half, right? But just because the numbers are half, that excuses you to act the fool. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think so. That excuses you to pay people less, or excuses you to treat people with disrespect. Like, I don't think so, right? Like, I think you just need to be like, I think this was literally people just gotta not be assholes and have some sort of empathy towards other people that are not exactly like them.
That's what I'm saying. But like, as soon as you're like class,
when
you're out of classroom,
it doesn't matter.
I know it doesn't matter. I agree with you, but I'm saying the reality is, as soon as they're out of the classroom of how to not grope and be more diverse, they're gonna immediately fall back to old behavior because the majority of them are guys, right? And it's funny to them, all that stuff.
No, I think I've seen.
You seen change?
I've seen some slight glimmers of hope here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
and I think just as more time goes on and as things change, things will get better. I think personally.
What I think is whenever a studio reach that type of success, that power gets to their head to do whatever they want. I mean, I feel like every Riot, right, Blizzard are fine examples of a string of success for a long time.
No, I don't think it matters about the success. It just matters about people being assholes or not. I think.
Yeah, but like
I think
that's
there's a ton of. I
with
think there's a ton
power
of. I think there's a ton of unsuccessful companies
that act like
people
this.
are assholes that act like this. Like,
Yeah.
I may have worked at a few, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, so it's, I don't think it has any, like, we could always look for explanations, but I think the one thing that I think is a common denominator is you just don't respect people and you're an asshole.
Yeah. You're not talking about me. You're talking about those. Let's make it clear to the listeners out there. You're not talking about me. I'm very respectable, by the way. And never grew up to anyone in my life.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? That's at least that's my opinion, and I'll stick to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think throughout my career, I've seen what have I seen? I've seen like smaller instances of mistreatment, right? Not sexual harassment, but like just glossing over opinions or not taking a certain person as seriously as they should. To me, in the beginning, it was my first type of inequity was the age, right? Because I always look pretty damn youthful for my positions that I've always been at. And I've noticed like just older looking people who are less experienced just get that easier promotion, right? Just by just how they look, how older they are, how much older they are, right? Because old age gets falsely sometimes attributed to experience. And so in the early part of my career, I was seeing a lot of that. And it was very tough for me to kind of continue and be competitive. It was just someone who started the industry, unfortunately, at the age of 30 or whatever, will actually beat someone who had 3 years of experience. And I saw that firsthand many times at every studio. So, I don't blame that because, how do you, maybe it's education, but the nuance of that is so hard to correct, right? It's like you're going to have personal bias. You're going to assume that this person had life experience that is more fitting for a lead, even though they're new to the industry or whatever, right? It's a hard. I don't know how to fix like, that. Really,
I've literally done training where it's been about that, right? Like, how do you recognize people's differences for what they are, and then value them, right? And yes, it is inherent in us to kind of discount people that are not the same.
Yeah.
And so you actually it has to be a conscious effort, right? Like you actually have to be mindful and make a conscious effort towards it, Yeah. Otherwise, like, what's like, you know what I mean? Otherwise, you just don't care, right?
Yeah.
So if you do care, then you just have to be mindful and actually try to catch those cases where you're not.
Now I see it in all parts of all life aspects, not just career. Like in the very much same way I had my kid early, right? In my 20s, right? So I'm hanging around with these old people with the same age kid, and naturally they kind of click together better. It's not like I'm kind of feeling left out. I actually don't like hanging out with parents, really.
You sound like you feel sad being left out.
But it's just part of it. Is like they're older, they like the same type of shows. You understand. you have old people shit. And I was like, but God, I'm still young and hip. I don't know what you're talking about. How many pills do you take? That's usually what my questions are. What hurts?
Terrible.
I'm still sprung, dude. But I think it's very natural to have that aspects of life stuff into the workplace. And yeah, maybe with training and all this stuff, there's kind of like a positive impact. At the same time, I think there are misconceptions about diverse education and diversity. Kind of the highlight of that is celebrating each other's differences and not about making everyone the same, which I feel get mixed sometimes in the messaging. It's like we're all the same. No, we're not. I like my race too. You like your race. Let's just keep it at that. Just respect each other's race. But yeah,
we're definitely not all the same. I hate it. I hate when I hear people are like, I don't see color.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of times it leans towards that, and it's worse in my opinion. It's like we don't come from the same background, and by doing that, you're disregarding my history a bit.
Yeah.
So that I see a lot more when people kind of overcorrect, right? I guess that's what it is, an overcorrection, and they just go the opposite, the other side exaggerated, and it's the same result. It's just as bad. So I don't know, man. It's tricky. I don't know what industry really nailed it, because I look at the tech industry, right, and they are a lot more diverse, but I don't. Well, I mean, like than game industry at least, right?
Well, I mean,
they're leading the effort at least.
I mean, the bar is in hell,
yeah. Right.
I mean, so like the bar is still in hell when you talk about tech. So, but you're like, man, it's a little bit colder up here, I guess.
Yeah.
but like it's no,
it's not.
It's more diverse because yes, it's a much bigger industry. Like tech as a whole is a much bigger industry than video games, and so when you constrain the number, like you're also constraining the pool of people that get into it, right? So it makes it worse.
Yeah.
But no, tech. Like I would not like when I compare the two. Actually, when you compare the percentages of the two, they're actually like that's the percentages. So you basically control for size. It's pretty similar.
It's pretty similar.
Yeah.
All right. I was about to say, like the tech, yes, they're making a lot more money, but I don't feel like their workplace are better. Right? I hear similar complaints in those places as well.
Of course. Yeah.
I guess we just got to find that industry that really nails this. I don't know any, dude. No one's really figured this out. 2021.
There has to be one where there's not like a new allegation every single day. Like there has to be.
Well, let me ask you this, right? This is what
there has to be one. Yeah.
We're coming out of 2020, the pandemic era. A lot of people were remote. I would assume the groping got less, right? Like, aren't we supposed to be better? Like wouldn't it mean like all this diverse stuff, all these like stuff got better, didn't it? Or are people Zoom muting?
Hey, but here's the thing. Well,
like, how does it work?
Right?
What's the problem?
Here's the thing. Like a lot of the stuff that we're even talking about has nothing really to do with actual physical, sexual, like that's sexual assault.
Right. So we're talking about salary.
And a lot of times we're not even talking about sexual assault. We're talking about sexual harassment, which is different, right? It's not exactly the sexual, you have to touch and grope somebody.
I need to just be able to picture this like Zoom call meeting that somehow half the room is being ignored. Like how did that translate to the digital platform? Yeah.
But that happens in a lot of meetings, right? Like if you're the more introverted person, the more quiet one, your voice is not going to get heard, right? But then it's up to the people that are running the meeting and the more senior people in the room to make sure that everybody's voice is heard, right? You know what I mean? And
oh man, it's so stressful being a manager.
Of course, I guess I'm talking like that. I'm talking like just because I am a manager, literally,
Yeah.
and so these are the things that you have to think about these things.
It's so annoying though. It's like
your
I
job.
go to my
And not
preschool, and
not only is it your job, but in like in certain places, California especially, like you are legally required, to.
oh my God, all these rules.
Right.
Just gonna play stocks.
Like,
people, I've always said, because I'm getting to a point where half my career is being a manager now, and it's people are always variables, right? And all of my problems are people now. Like it's not about the work ever, right? And it's like children. Yeah, they're like children, and it's always.
I would
so I understand that side.
I wouldn't necessarily say it like that, but I would say definitely like the majority of the work you do, like a large portion of it is
people,
is people and people management. 100%.
So, anyways, let's give some concluding thoughts here. So Blizzard's going to do fine. Activision's going to do fine. This is going to pass over. They're going to announce, if not already, some interim non-cited firm that will be handling this and fix all these issues.
I mean, they're also still hiring, and people are still joining.
Yes,
as we speak.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but at the end of the day, it's we're talking about this stuff. More light's being shed on it.
It's helpful,
right? And when I started out in this industry, there'd be no way now that any of this stuff was being talked about.
Ray had some stories that he can't share.
There's literally story like not around sexual harassment really, but there's stories that have that it's like no, like that cannot happen in a workplace. Like somebody has to get fired for that these days. You know what I mean?
It's so hard getting fired at game companies.
Back in the day, it was crazy. It was craziness.
Was it that common back there? Because I feel like every company I have, like if I hear anyone getting fired, it's like the worst type of like he left them no choice. Like whatever. Yeah. It's so hard getting fired at a game company nowadays. I feel
shenanigans.
Yeah. Layoffs, yeah, but like fired, dude. You must be doing something very special to earn that. Yeah. Well, anyways, that actually concludes this roundtable news. Blizzard kind of and Riot in a good way are kind of paving a path for those two companies with new leadership. Right, a lot of people are crying over the OGs leaving the company, but the company was doing bad anyway, so this might be the fresh blood needed. And kind of mentioned before, Leeds kind of camp that position way too long, and time to make room, right? Change the hierarchy, get higher salaries, get paid, all that stuff. And it's exciting times, if anything, for those, and it should be better times. So now the offenders are giving it a second thought before they go forward doing their next offending. So I think overall it's pretty good. Like it's perfect timing for when everyone's going back to the office to kind of sense some change. The Blizzard one was a big deal. It definitely made an impact to the shareholders and everybody. I think they're actually taking it kind of pretty seriously now because there's no avoiding it, and for the better, man. That's a huge company. Hopefully that's another California company that if you guys live around here can look forward to working again or for the first time.
Yeah,
it's good. Overall it's good. I am waiting for that day that they tell me the highest number that they can offer and it being true. That would be fantastic. That'd be the quickest negotiation ever. No more bluffing, none of that stuff.
At the very least, they're going to tell you the midpoint of the range.
Midpoint of the range. All right. Well, thank you, Ray, for going on. As always, tell the good people how they can reach out to you to say how wrong or right you are about this week's episode.
You don't need to reach out to me, man. It's all good.
What's your Twitter handle, at least?
It's WADARASS.
There you go.
Waterrass on there.
Go ahead and find it in the show notes. And as always, you can tweet at me at Blue Champs as well. And this concludes today's Roundtable News episode. Thank you, everyone. See you guys all next week.